I, David Grant, lost everything for the woman I thought I would spend my life with, only to find out she was already moving on with my best friend. That betrayal tore me apart, but it also ignited something in me, a hunger to rebuild, to rise from the ashes of my past, and prove that I was more than the sum of my losses. Now I'm building an empire from the ground up, and the only thing standing in my way is the man who took everything from me. Jason Mitchell may have taken my trust, but he won't take my future, and Ava Williams. She may regret her choices, but I won't let their betrayal define me. I'm making my own way, and this time, no one gets to stop me. I never thought I'd see the day when my world would come crashing down in a split second. I'd just come home from a long day at work, expecting nothing more than a quiet evening with Ava. She was everything to me: beautiful, kind, my anchor in a sea of chaos. Jason, my best friend since childhood, was supposed to be my brother. The two of them were all I needed. But that night I found something I wasn't ready for. I stepped inside our apartment, the door clicking shut behind me. A faint sound reached my ears, laughter, familiar and comforting. It was Jason's laugh. I smiled, thinking maybe they were just hanging out like old times. But something felt off. The air was too still, too thick with an unspoken tension. As I walked closer to the living room, I heard it. Soft whispers, then a sharp gasp that made my blood run cold. Without thinking, I pushed open the door, and then I saw them. Ava, my girlfriend, was in Jason's arms, her lips pressed against his. I froze. My entire body turned to stone, as the scene before me felt like a bad dream too surreal to be true. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But then Jason looked up, his eyes wide in panic, and Ava pulled away, her face flushed with guilt. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Ava's voice was soft, trembling. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was shaking, but not from the cold. Anger surged through me, a wave that crashed against my chest. How long, Ava? The words barely escaped my lips, but they were enough to shatter the silence. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. Ow. It just happened, she whispered. Just happened. The words burned in my mind. Wanted to scream, to tear into both of them, but I couldn't. My throat closed, suffocating me. Jason stood there, frozen, as if he expected me to understand. How long? I repeated, louder this time, my fists clenching. I could feel the heat of betrayal coursing through me, and I hated myself for it. Hated how weak I felt. How long, Jason? His lips parted, but no words came out at first. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you. I couldn't take it anymore. The betrayal hit deeper than I thought it could. Sorry doesn't fix this, Jason, I spat, my voice cold, cutting through the air like a knife. You've destroyed everything. Ava stepped forward, reaching for me. But I stepped back, my heart pounding painfully against my chest. Don't touch me, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't find it in me to care. She was the one who'd broken me. She was the one who had betrayed me with my best friend, the person I trusted above all else. David, please, she begged, her voice cracking. I never meant to hurt you. It was a mistake. A mistake, I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping me. A mistake. No, this isn't a mistake, Ava. This is betrayal. Jason's face crumpled, guilt flooding his expression. But I wasn't looking at him anymore. I couldn't. You ruined everything, I muttered, turning away from them. The anger and hurt too overwhelming to stay in that room any longer. I stormed out of the apartment, the door slamming behind me. The cold air outside hit me like a slap to the face, but I barely felt it. My chest tightened, and my head spun. I couldn't believe this was happening. I had trusted them both with everything, and they had destroyed me in the blink of an eye. I stumbled through the streets of Chicago, the lights blurring in my vision. It was as if everything I had built my relationship, my friendship, was gone in an instant. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. All I wanted was to escape. Escape from the pain. Escape from the memories. But the betrayal, the weight of it, followed me.
Ow.
No matter how fast I walked, how far I went, I couldn't outrun the truth. Jason wasn't just my best friend anymore. It was the one who had ripped everything apart. And Ava. She was the woman I had loved. The woman who had torn my heart into pieces. I didn't know what to do with myself anymore. All I had was a burning fury inside me, and I knew one thing for certain. I'd never forgive them. I couldn't escape it. Every corner of my apartment, every inch of this city seemed to remind me of them. Chicago, my home. My life felt suffocating now. I didn't want to be here, but I didn't know where else to go. I'd never felt more alone. I couldn't look at Ava's things without feeling sick. The pictures we'd taken, the notes we'd shared, the stupid little gifts she'd left on the kitchen counter. It all felt like a lie. I couldn't make sense of it. Okay, how had everything been fine one day and then shattered the next? I sat in the living room, staring blankly at the empty space in front of me. The silence felt like a physical weight pressing against my chest. My phone buzzed, but I didn't bother checking it. I couldn't, my stomach churned every time I thought about them. Then the phone buzzed again, this time the caller ID catching my eye. My mother, Helen. I let it ring for a few seconds before picking up, trying to mask the mess I was feeling inside. "David, honey, are you okay?" Her voice was soft, concerned, but I could hear the worry in it. She'd known me long enough to recognize when something was wrong. "Yeah," I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. Just tired." "You don't sound okay?" "What happened, sweetheart?" She paused. "You haven't been answering my calls. What's going on?" Couldn't hold it in anymore. Felt the anger bubbling up, the pain sharp and raw. "Ava, she's been cheating on me." "With Jason?" I could hear her gasp, the shock evident in her voice. "David, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say." I slammed my fist against the couch, feeling a surge of rage. "What is there to say, Mom? They destroyed everything. Trusted them both. Sweetheart, I know you're hurt, but you can't let this ruin you. You need to move forward. Move forward."
How could I?
My world had just fallen apart, and she wanted me to move forward like it was just another setback in life. "They're both so selfish," I spat, clenching my jaw. "Jason, he's my best friend. He was supposed to have my back, and Ava was the woman I loved. David, I know this hurts. I know it feels like everything's falling apart right now. But you can't let it keep you down forever." Her voice softened. "I've seen you go through tough times before. You're stronger than this." But I didn't feel strong. I felt hollow. The anger was eating me alive, gnawing at me from the inside out. I didn't want to hear her words. I didn't want to hear anything about being strong, about moving on. "I just need space, Mom," I said, my voice thick with frustration. "I need to think." "I understand," she replied quietly. "But remember, I'm always here for you. Don't shut everyone out. You don't have to go through this alone." I didn't answer right away. I didn't know what to say. She was right. I didn't want to be alone, but I couldn't bring myself to face anyone, not even her. Not yet. After a few seconds of silence, I hung up the phone, staring at it for a long time. I hadn't felt this much anger, this much hurt in years, and I hated myself for it. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the kitchen cabinet. My hands shook as I poured myself a drink, not caring anymore. The bitter burn in my throat didn't help dull the pain, just made everything sharper, but I kept drinking. The alcohol blurred the thoughts racing through my mind, and for a few moments it felt like I wasn't even here, like I was someone else, someone who wasn't broken by betrayal. I sat there in the silence, drowning in my thoughts, my anger, my hurt. The next few days passed in a haze. I stopped responding to calls, shut myself in. Ava and Jason both reached out, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to them. Ava sent messages apologizing, but I couldn't even look at her name without feeling the sharp pang in my chest. Jason's messages were worse. "I didn't mean for this to happen, man. Please, I want to talk. Let's fix this." But I couldn't fix this. Not now. Not ever. I couldn't stop replaying the moment I'd walked in on them, the way she'd looked at him, the way he hadn't even bothered to look ashamed. It was like everything I had given them, my trust, my love, my loyalty, meant nothing. I went to the bar that night, trying to drown the memories, trying to forget. The bartender gave me a look, but said nothing. He had seen people like me before, people who drank to forget. I was one of them now. Hours passed, and I lost track of time, but it didn't matter. The anger was still there, the bitterness, the disbelief. Ava and Jason had turned my life into a nightmare, and nothing I did could change it. The air felt different in Boston. It wasn't just the chill of the November wind that cut through my jacket. It was the weight that had lifted off my chest, the emptiness that had been there for months finally starting to fade. I hadn't expected that. But I also hadn't expected to feel so. I stood on the curb, staring at the bustling city around me. People walked by, oblivious to the storm inside me. The city was alive, but I felt like I was floating above it all, disconnected. I hadn't felt this far removed from everything in years. The phone call with my mom earlier that week was still playing in my head. "You need to get out of there, David. You can't stay in Chicago, not after what happened. You're better than that. You're stronger than this." Her words kept echoing in my mind, even though it was her comforting voice that had convinced me to leave. I spent too long drowning in memories, stuck in a cycle of anger and regret, so I left. I didn't tell anyone I was coming to Boston, not even. I just packed up a few things and caught the first bus I could get on. When I stepped off the bus, the familiar buildings and busy streets of Boston gave me a sense of something close to hope. I wasn't sure how to describe it, but standing there with the cool air brushing against my face, I felt like I might actually survive this. I texted Kat to let her know I was in town. The message was simple: "Can we meet up? I'm in Boston." She replied immediately, like she always did. "Of course. I'm free now. Let's catch up. You need some coffee, don't you?" The cafe wasn't far from the bus station. I knew it well. Kat and I used to hang out there when we were kids. It was where we'd spent hours talking about everything and nothing at all. I needed that now. I needed the comfort of someone who knew me before all the pain. When I walked in, I saw her immediately. She hadn't changed much. Same easy smile, same sparkle in her eyes. Even though I knew she could tell something was off the moment she saw me. "David," she said softly, getting up to hug me. "It's so good to see you. I'm glad you're here." I let her hug me, needing it more than I realized. It had been a long time since someone had held me without any conditions. We sat down, and I watched her eyes study me. I wasn't sure how I looked. Haggard. Maybe like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. "Tell me everything," she said. "How are you doing? How's Chicago?" I shook my head, a small laugh escaping me. "Chicago feels like a lifetime ago." I paused, swallowing hard. Everything fell apart. Ava, Jason. I couldn't stay there anymore. "I can't even imagine how hard this has been for you," she said, her voice full of compassion. "But you know, you're here now. It's what matters. You've made it through." I stared down at my coffee, not sure how to respond. I didn't want to drag her into my mess. She didn't deserve that. "You don't have to talk about it if you're not ready," she added, sensing my hesitation. "But I'm here for you, David. Always." I appreciated that more than she would ever know. Kat had always been the one person who knew how to make me feel like I wasn't alone. We'd been through a lot together, and somehow her presence grounded me. After a long silence, I finally spoke. "I don't know what to do next, Kat. I've been stuck. I've been angry, and I've been hurting. I didn't know how to get out of it." She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. "You're already out of it. You made the hardest choice. You left. That's the first step." "I feel like I've lost everything," I admitted, my voice cracking. "My trust, my future, my friends, my love. How do I rebuild all that?" "You start with you," she said simply. "You have to do it for yourself, David. You can't keep holding on to people who don't deserve you. You have to let go of the anger. I know it's hard, but the best way to heal is to focus on yourself." I looked at her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a small spark of something hope, maybe. Or maybe just the will to try. "You're right," I said, exhaling slowly. "I've been holding on to things I can't change. I've been letting the anger control me." Kat smiled, her eyes soft with understanding. "You've always been a fighter. I know you'll find your way." That night, I stayed with Kat at her apartment. We talked for hours about the old days, about life, about how much everything had changed. And for the first time in months, I felt like I might be able to move forward. The next day, I took the first step toward rebuilding my life. I signed up for therapy, something I never thought I'd do. But I knew I needed it. I had to face the darkness, to work through it. And I started to explore business ideas, something I'd always been passionate about, but never really had the courage to pursue. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't have a clear path. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let the betrayal define me. I was going to rebuild. For me, and only for me. It had been a month since I'd arrived in Boston, and I still wasn't sure what I was doing. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was moving in the right direction. Every day was a battle, but it was a battle I was finally ready to face. "David, you can't keep holding on to what happened in Chicago," Kat said one evening as we sat on our couch sipping coffee. "You've got to let go of that anger, or it's just going to keep dragging you down." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I was ready to let go of the anger. Not yet. But the truth was, Kat had been right. I couldn't keep punishing myself or anyone else for the betrayal. I needed to move forward, and that meant taking control of my future. "Yeah, I know. It's just hard," I admitted, staring at the cup in my hands. The warmth from the coffee was comforting, but the weight of everything was still there, pressing on my chest. "I get it," she said softly, "but look, you've got a chance here, a real chance to do something. If you've always wanted to build something for yourself." I had, for as long as I could remember. I'd wanted to create something, build an empire, whatever that meant. But I'd always let other things get in the way. Life, love, friendship. Now, with everything I had lost, it felt like it was my only option. "I'm signing up for business classes," I said, surprising myself as the words came out. It wasn't something I'd planned, but it felt right. Kat raised an eyebrow, a smile playing at her lips. "I like that. What kind of business are you thinking about?" I thought for a moment. "I don't know yet. Maybe tech. Maybe something online. But I want it to be mine, something I built from the ground up." "That's the spirit," she said. "Not going to let them define you, are you?" "No," I replied, a new sense of determination in my voice. "I'm going to make something out of this, out of all of it." The next week, I signed up for my first business course at a local community college. I threw myself into it, trying to focus all my energy on something positive. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. I also started networking, reaching out to people who could help me get my ideas off the ground. I didn't know what I was doing, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. I had something to prove, not just to the world, but to myself. A few days later, while I was at a local coffee shop working on my business plan, I bumped into Marcus Hayes. He was an older guy, mid-40s, with sharp eyes and a serious demeanor. He introduced himself, and I noticed right away that he carried himself like someone who had done more than just survive. He had thrived. We struck up a conversation, and within minutes, it felt like he was sizing me up. "You look like you're trying to start something big," he said, studying my notebook. "What's your plan?" I hesitated at first, unsure of how to explain it all. "I'm still figuring it out," I said. "But I know I want to build something. I just don't know exactly what yet." He chuckled. "That's how it always starts. But you have to be hungry for it or it won't happen. You've got to be prepared for the long haul. Success isn't overnight. It takes work. A lot of it." "I'm ready for that," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I just need someone to show me the ropes." "Well," Marcus said, leaning back in his chair, "I'm looking for someone to mentor, someone who's serious about making it. If you're interested, I can help you figure out the next steps." I felt a wave of relief rush over me. "Yes, I'd appreciate that more than you know." That was the moment everything started to shift. With Marcus's guidance, I began to take my business ideas more seriously. He pushed me to think bigger, to stop limiting myself. I had taught me how to network, how to sell my ideas, and how to think about the long term. But even as my business plan started taking shape, there was still the quiet echo of Ava and Jason in the back of my mind. I tried not to think about them. It wasn't easy. I saw Jason's face every time I closed my eyes. Wondered what they were doing, if they were happy. And I hated myself for caring. But every time I felt weak, I reminded myself why I was here. They weren't worth my time, and they sure as hell weren't worth my energy. I couldn't keep looking back. Marcus's advice became my mantra: don't look back. You can't move forward if you're constantly checking behind you. I threw myself into my work, ignoring the part of me that wanted to pick up the phone and call Ava. I didn't need her, didn't need Jason. I needed to rebuild. As the weeks passed, I saw progress. Small victories, finishing my business plan, getting a few connections, even landing a couple of clients for a side project. It was a start, but it was enough to keep me going. Boston was becoming my new home. It was where I was learning to live again, to fight for my future, to find something worth living for. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control. But there was still a part of me that wondered what they were doing. I refused to call them, refused to reach out. But the thoughts never fully left my mind. Still, I couldn't let their lives dictate mine. I had a future to build, and that future wasn't going to include them. I wasn't going to be defined by their betrayal. I wasn't going to let that be the end of my story. I hadn't heard from Jason in months. I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to. But the message I received that morning hit me harder than I expected. David, I know I don't deserve a chance to speak to you, but I need to apologize. I was wrong. I hurt you, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. Please, let's talk. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. The words seemed hollow, empty, like they came from someone who didn't know what it meant to truly be sorry. The anger inside me flared up instantly, and I clenched my fists, my fingers digging into my phone's edge. I didn't want to reply. I didn't want to hear it. But something in MIT wasn't just curiosity, but a sick, twisted urge wanted to. Wanted to know what he had to say, so I did. What do you want, Jason? I typed, my fingers shaking slightly as I hit send. A few minutes passed before his reply came through. I need to explain. Can we meet? I need to make it right. I could feel my heart racing. The last thing I wanted was to see him, but part of Mitha, part one hated, wanted the closure. I wanted to hear him say it, hear him beg, so I could finally do what I knew I should have done months ago. I left my apartment and met him at a coffee shop in Boston. I walked in and there he was, sitting by the window looking almost exactly the way he had before everything fell apart. But this time, I wasn't the same person who used to call him a brother. I was different now. Broken, yes, but also stronger in ways I didn't fully understand. I sat down across from him, my gaze hard. You've got 5 minutes, I said, my voice colder than I intended. Jason looked at me, his face pale, his eyes tired. There was no fire in him anymore, only regret. David. I've thought about this every day since I messed everything up. I've been miserable. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm begging you to hear me out. I was weak, betrayed you in the worst possible way, and I can't change that. But I want to make it right. I felt a flash of something dark inside me. That old anger, that rage I had buried deep for so long, began to stir. The memories of Ava's kiss on Jason's lips. The way they'd looked at each other like they were the only two people in the world. It all came rushing back. You're right about one thing, I said, my voice tight. Can't change it, and you can't make it right. Out of words or apologies will ever undo what you did. Jason's face fell, and for a second, I saw the guilt written all over him. He leaned forward, his voice pleading. David, please. Been trying to make things right. I know I don't deserve anything, but I just want... I interrupted him, my anger bubbling over. What, Jason? You want me to forgive you? You think you can just waltz back into my life and act like nothing happened? His eyes widened, and I saw a flicker of fear in them. I'm not asking for that, David. I just need you to know how sorry I am. I'm sorry for everything. I felt something dark stirring within me, something I hadn't let myself feel in a while. Revenge. The temptation to expose him, to make him suffer like I had, was overwhelming. I stood up abruptly, feeling the tension in my body. No, I don't need your apologies, and I don't need closure. What I need is to forget you ever existed in my life. I turned away from him, my hands trembling at my sides. As I reached the door, I heard Jason call my name. David, please don't do this. I stopped. For a second I was torn. Part of me wanted to turn around, to let him know just how much I had been hurt, how much I had sacrificed for him. I didn't. I couldn't. I couldn't let him see the pain he had caused me. I walked out of the coffee shop, the door closing behind me with a soft thud. As soon as I stepped into the crisp Boston air, I felt the anger fading, but it wasn't replaced by peace. It was replaced by something worse. The temptation to make him feel every ounce of pain he had put me through lingered. I had every right to destroy him. I had every right to expose everything, how he'd lied to me, how he destroyed my relationship. But Marcus's words echoed in my mind. You're not going to get anything out of revenge, David. Marcus had told me once. All you'll get is more of the same emptiness. You've got to focus on your success. That's where your power is. His voice kept coming back to me, urging me to rise above it. But the temptation, it gnawed at me. The idea of watching Jason pay for what he'd done felt too good to pass up. I leaned against a building, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. I hated Jason, but did I hate him enough to let revenge define me? Is that really what I wanted? My hands clenched into fists as I took a deep breath. No, I wasn't going to let him win. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I had my own future to build. The months since I left Chicago had been a blur, a mix of long nights and early mornings. But as my business in Boston began to grow, I started feeling something I hadn't in a while: hope. It was small at first, barely noticeable, but it was there. I was building something for myself, and that meant everything. One night after a long day of meetings, I decided to take a break and go to a local bar. I wasn't much of a drinker, but I needed some time to clear my head. I sat at the bar, nursing a beer, trying to focus on the business plan I'd been working on for weeks. But my mind kept drifting back to everything that had happened with Ava and Jason. I hadn't thought much about dating or relationships in a while. I had no desire to open myself up again, not after what they had done. But when she walked in, everything changed.
Allie
Foster. I noticed her immediately, tall, confident, with a smile that lit up the entire room. She was talking to the bartender, laughing, her energy infectious. For some reason, I couldn't look away. When she turned around and caught my eye, she smiled, and I felt my heart skip a beat. I wasn't used to this, to someone looking at me like I mattered. "Is this seat taken?" she asked, pointing to the empty chair next to me. Shook my head, surprised that I even had the words to respond. "No, it's all yours." She sat down, her presence easy and comfortable. "I'm Riley," she said, extending her hand. "Nice to meet you." "David," I said, shaking her hand. I felt a spark of something: curiosity, maybe. Or maybe just the reminder that life could still surprise me. We started talking. At first, it was just casual stuff: where we were from, what we did for work. But it didn't take long before the conversation deepened. She asked me about my business, and for the first time in a long time, I spoke about it with excitement. "I've been working on this for a while," I told her. "I've got a few clients now, and I think things are finally starting to take off, but it's not easy. There are days when I feel like I'm in over my head." She nodded, listening intently. "It's hard to get started, but it sounds like you're doing well. You should be proud of yourself." I looked at her, really looked at her. There was something genuine in her eyes, something warm. It felt good to talk to someone who wasn't judging me, who didn't know about my past and didn't care. "It's funny," I said, my voice quieter. "I've been so focused on building this business that I forgot what it was like to just enjoy life." "You're allowed to enjoy it, you know," she said with a soft laugh. "Even when things are tough." We spent the next hour talking, and by the end of it, I felt like I'd known her for much longer. There was something about her strength, her kindness, that made me believe in the good in people again. For the first time since I'd left Chicago, I found myself thinking that maybe I wasn't completely broken. The next few weeks flew by. Riley and I kept in touch, meeting for coffee or dinner whenever we could. It wasn't anything serious, but the connection between us was undeniable. She made me laugh, and for a moment, I didn't feel weighed down by the past. She made me feel like I could still trust people, still be vulnerable without fear of getting hurt. One evening, we were sitting in a park, talking about everything and nothing, when she turned to me with a look of concern. "You've been through a lot, David," she said quietly. "I can tell you're still carrying a lot of pain. You don't have to keep it all inside." I shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. The truth was, I didn't know how to let go of the anger I'd been holding on to for so long. I'd worked hard to build something, to move on, but the memories of what Jason and Ava had done still haunted me. "I don't know how to forgive them," I admitted. "How do you just forget something like that?" Riley's expression softened. "You don't forget, but you learn to forgive for yourself, not for them. You carry that anger, and it only hurts you in the end. They don't deserve to have that power over you anymore." Her words hit me harder than I expected. It was like a weight lifted off my chest. I realized she was right. I didn't have to hold on to the anger. It didn't define me anymore. It didn't have to be my story. "I think I'm finally starting to get it," I said, looking at her. "I've spent so much time punishing myself for what happened, but I don't have to do that. Okay, I can move on." She smiled, the kind of smile that made everything feel a little bit easier. "Exactly, and you don't have to do it alone. You've got people who care about you." I looked at Riley, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time I felt something more than just pain.
Hi.
I felt hope. It had been months since I left Boston for Austin, and things were finally starting to take off. My business was growing, slowly but surely. I wasn't where I wanted to be yet, but the progress was undeniable. I felt like I was starting to become the person I was meant to be. The pain from the past was still there, but I was beginning to push it aside. I was in my office one evening going over a proposal for a new client when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and my heart skipped a beat. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" I answered, my voice guarded. "David." A familiar voice came through the line. It was Ava. I hadn't heard from her in months, hadn't wanted to hear from her. "Ava," I said, my voice cold. "What do you want?" I need to see you. Can we meet? I owe you an apology." I felt a rush of anger. Apology, after everything she'd done. "I don't think there's anything left to say," I replied, my hand tightening around the phone. "I know I don't deserve it, but please, David, can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" I sighed, feeling the weight of the past crash down on me. Part of me wanted to hang up, to move on, but another part, the part that still hadn't fully let go, felt a pull. "Fine," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "One coffee." We agreed to meet at a cafe not far from my office, and when I walked in, I saw her sitting by the window, looking almost exactly the same as I remembered. She hadn't changed. She was still beautiful, still the woman who once held my heart. But the moment I saw her, I realized that the love I thought I'd had for her was nothing more than a memory now. I walked over to the table, my steps slow, deliberate. "I didn't expect this," I said, sitting across from her. "I didn't expect you to even want to see me," she replied softly, her eyes filled with regret. "David, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm so sorry. I hurt you in the worst way, and I've been living with that guilt every day." I stared at her for a long moment, trying to find the right words. But all I felt was this strange sense of distance, like she was a stranger, not someone who had once been my world. "You didn't just hurt me, Ava. You destroyed everything we had. You destroyed my trust." "I know," she whispered. "I never meant for it to happen, and I hate myself for it. I just... I don't know what happened. But I'm here now, and I need you to know how deeply sorry I am. I couldn't keep doing this. Couldn't keep going back to the same place of pain. I'd spent months trying to rebuild myself, trying to focus on the future, and here she was, dragging me back into the past. I felt the anger building inside me, but it wasn't for her anymore. It was for myself, for letting her have this much power over me even now. "I don't need your apology, Ava," I said, my voice firm. "I've moved on. You don't get to fix this. You don't get to walk back into my life like nothing happened." Her face fell, and she looked away, guilt washing over her. "I understand," she said quietly. I wanted you to know how much I regret what I did. I want to make things right. I want to be a better person." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing. There was no pain, no anger, just an empty space where the love I once felt for her used to be. "You've already made your choice, Ava," I said, standing up. "You chose him, and you chose to destroy what we had. I don't need your validation, and I don't need your apology. I'm done." I turned to walk away, but I heard her voice one last time. "David, I'm sorry for everything." I didn't turn back. As I walked out of the cafe, the weight of the past didn't follow me. It didn't chase me down the street, begging for attention. For the first time in months, I felt free. The decision had been made. I wasn't going to let her or Jason control me anymore. A few days later, I got a call from one of my old business contacts, offering me an opportunity to expand my business into new markets. The timing couldn't have been better. My empire was starting to grow, and now this offer felt like a reward for all the hard work I had put in. I spent the next few weeks working with a team of consultants to draft a plan for the expansion. I felt a surge of pride as I watched my business grow, piece by piece. This was mine. I had built it from the ground up, and no one, not Ava, not Jason, could take that away from me. But as my business grew, I heard about Jason. His business was struggling. He was barely getting by, and there were rumors that his company might go under. I knew, in some sick way, that it was karma. The very thing that had caused my downfall, the betrayal, was coming back to bite him. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt like justice had been served. But I didn't. I felt nothing. I had been given the chance to move on, to build something better. And as Jason's world fell apart, I realized that I wasn't the same person who would have reveled in his failure. I had no interest in revenge. I had no interest in watching him crumble. The decision had been made, and I had chosen my future over everything else. I'd heard the rumors for weeks. Jason's business was crumbling, his clients were pulling out, his debts mounting. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction. He deserved this. I didn't feel anything. I had built my empire, piece by piece, in San Francisco. My business was thriving, and every new client, every contract, felt like another step away from the wreckage of my past. The weight of betrayal was still there, lurking in the corners of my mind, but it didn't consume me anymore. I had finally found peace. But then one day I got the message. It was from Jason. "David, can we meet? I need to talk to you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to explain myself. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. I didn't know why, but something in me wanted closure. Something in me wanted to hear what he had to say, even if I didn't care about his apology anymore. Fine, let's meet. He suggested a cafe downtown, and when I arrived, he was already there. Jason looked worn out, his face pale, his eyes tired. He looked nothing like the man I once considered my best friend. He looked like someone who had given up. I sat down across from him, the silence between us heavy. "You wanted to talk?" I said, my voice colder than I meant it to be. He looked up at me, his gaze filled with regret. "I'm not here to make excuses, David. I need you to understand how sorry I am. How sorry I've been. Everything's falling apart. My business, my life, I've lost everything. And I can't blame anyone but myself." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "You're right. You've lost everything. You've lost me, you've lost your credibility, your company, and you've ruined everything we had. But you still think I need to hear your apology?" I could feel the anger bubbling under my skin, but I didn't want to give him that satisfaction. "I didn't mean to hurt you," Jason said quietly. "Never thought it would go this far. I thought we were just, messing around, but it's all my fault. I was weak, selfish. I destroyed our friendship and everything you had." "Caneva," I added, my voice flat. "You destroyed her too. She was a part of this, Jason. But you don't care about that, do you?" His face dropped, guilt flooding his features. "I do care, David. I care more than you know. I ruined the best thing in my life. I know you can't forgive me for what happened, but I needed you to hear this from me. I was wrong." I let his words settle in the air. The anger still simmered inside me, but it didn't feel as strong as it once had. It felt distant, like a storm that had already passed. "I don't need your apology, Jason," I said, finally speaking the words I had been holding back. "I've forgiven myself. That's all I need to do. You don't get to fix this. You don't get to come back into my life." "I know," he whispered. "But I needed you to know how much I regret it. How much I wish I could go back and undo everything. I've been living with this guilt for so long. I'm not asking for you to forgive me. I just needed you to know." I looked at him for a long moment. He wasn't the man I once called my best friend. He wasn't the man who stood by me through thick and thin. He was just a man who had made a terrible mistake, and he was living with the consequences of it. I let out a breath. "It's too late for reconciliation, Jason. It's too late for anything." I stood up, my body moving on its own. I had nothing left to say to him. No anger, no resentment. Just the quiet realization that I didn't need him anymore. I had moved on, and he had too. Before I turned to leave, Jason spoke one last time. "David, ... I'm sorry." For everything, I paused, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I didn't need to hold on to this anymore. "Goodbye, Jason." I walked out of the cafe, feeling lighter than I had in years. The final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need him to feel the same pain I had. What I needed was to let it go. And I had. A few weeks passed, and as I focused more on my business, I couldn't help but notice the growth. It wasn't just in revenue, it was in me. I was no longer the man I was when I first arrived in San Francisco. The anger, the pain, it was all fading away, piece by piece. I had built something, and no one could take that from me. Ava reached out, too, sending me a message apologizing for everything. But just like Jason, her apology didn't matter anymore. I had let go of her a long time ago. Her regrets didn't change anything. I didn't need her in my life to feel whole again. I had found peace. I had found myself. And I was moving forward, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. As I looked out over the city from my office window, I knew that this was just the beginning. My empire wasn't just about the business I was building. It was about me. It was about the life I was creating for myself. No longer defined by betrayal or heartbreak, but by my own choices, my own strength. And I was ready for it, ready for everything that came next. I sat in my office overlooking the bustling streets of San Francisco, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel the weight of the past. The city below me was full of life, just like my business had become. It had been a long journey from the man I was when I first arrived here. I wasn't the same person anymore. I had rebuilt myself piece by piece, and I was proud of what I had done. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the skyline. It was beautiful, but it didn't compare to how I felt right now. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I had achieved what I set out to do, and in doing so, I had discovered a strength within me that I never knew existed. Riley walked into the office, her smile warm as always. She was the one person who had been there for me through all of this. The one who had reminded me that not all people were like Ava and Jason. She had helped me heal, slowly but surely. "Hey," she said softly, walking over to my desk. "You look like you're in deep thought." "I am," I said, looking up at her, "just reflecting on how far I've come." She sat down across from me, her eyes searching mine. "You've come a long way, David. I'm proud of you." I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." She shrugged. "You did the hard work. I just gave you the space to do it." I looked at her, my heart swelling with emotion. She had been there for me when I couldn't see a way forward, when I was lost. She was the light that helped me find my way. And now, here I was, standing tall, stronger than I'd ever been. "I still can't believe it," I said, shaking my head. "Everything that happened with Ava and Jason, I thought I'd never get over it. I thought it would define me forever. But it didn't," she said, her voice soft but firm. "It didn't define you, David. You took that pain and you turned it into something beautiful. You built this empire. You built yourself." I leaned forward, looking her in the eyes. "I didn't just build a business, Riley. I built myself. I found out who I really am in all of this. Not the same person I was when I walked into that apartment in Chicago. That guy is gone. I'm glad he's gone." She smiled, her eyes glistening with pride. "And I'm glad you're here. You've always been so much more than what they made you believe. You've always had it in you." I paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. The anger, the pain, the betrayal, it all felt like distant memories now. Ava and Jason were a part of my past, but they didn't have a hold on me anymore. "I used to think I needed them," I said quietly. "Used to think I needed their approval, their forgiveness. But now, see it. I don't need them. I never did. I've always had everything I needed right here." I placed my hand over my heart. Riley reached across the desk and took my hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm so proud of you, David. You've grown so much." I smiled at her, a weight lifting from my shoulders. "I'm proud of me too. I owe it to you, Riley. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "I'm just glad I could be there," she said softly, her voice full of warmth. "You've always had the strength. I just helped you see it." "I've seen it now," I said, the confidence in my voice stronger than ever. "It feels damn good." We sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, just soaking in the peace. I had worked so hard to get to this point, and now I was here. It wasn't just about the business or the money. It was about who I had become, the man I had built from the wreckage. Riley finally broke the silence. "So what now? What's next for us?" I smiled at her, feeling the warmth spread through me. "Next, we build our future. Together." She grinned, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Like the sound of that, I leaned back in my chair, feeling more at ease than I had in years. My empire wasn't just my business. It was my life. I had rebuilt everything from the ground up. I had learned that I didn't need anyone else to define my worth. The only validation I needed was from myself. And with Riley by my side, I was ready for whatever came next. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole. I felt at peace. I wasn't the man I had been when I started this journey. I was someone stronger, someone who had learned that the past didn't have to define the future. I had closed that chapter, and I was ready to begin a new one. This time, it was all mine.